A wise woman once told me that emotional pain is like a gift standing at your doorstep waiting for you to open it. Now you can choose to receive the gift, or you can choose to resist it. But if you choose not to receive it, it's still standing at your door. Try as you may to walk around it, you're going to keep running into it. Why not open it up and examine what it has to offer you? At the time, I couldn't appreciate her metaphor. I was happily married, had 3 kids, a dog, a house, and a picket fence. I was living my best life. Little did I know that 4 years later, the gift of emotional pain would arrive at my doorstep in the form of divorce papers. And when it came, I didn't recognize it as a gift. So instead of receiving it, I resisted it. And unfortunately, this was a pattern of mine. When faced with hard situations, I often sought to distract myself to avoid the emotional pain. You know, things like shopping, eating, Netflix. Those were my go-to numbing agents. But it didn't make sense. I mean, in my own community, I was the one that everyone called when they needed advice on how to navigate their struggles. Yet here I was, avoiding my own. It was easy for me to deal with other people's emotional pain. But when it came time to dealing with my own, not so much. It was a little too close for comfort. Emotional pain forces us to explore the deepest places within us because that's where the pain is buried. Who in their right mind wants to go digging that up? Not me. But pain and suffering is a part of the human experience. No one is excluded from it, and no one's getting out of it. I certainly didn't. When those divorce papers showed up at my doorstep that day, I just couldn't bring myself to open them. In a moment of truth, I found myself sobbing on the floor. I could no longer blind myself to my husband's addictions or my own codependency issues. In my pain, I cried out, "What did I do to deserve this?" You'd think that 15,000 hours of training in mental health would have prepared me for this. But nothing prepares you for when it's happening to you. I had been battling for so long, trying to keep my family together, trying to control the situation to prevent the aftermath of pain that would follow if my husband and I were to separate. I was utterly exhausted. And looking at those divorce papers made it clear that not only had my efforts failed, but that gift of pain was already here. Curled up on the doorstep, it dawned on me. Trying to make sense of how I got to this place was keeping me from realistically confronting it. I was spiraling into depression, and I knew I needed to do something to keep myself from completely unraveling. Just then, I remembered a corporate slogan from years ago that said something like, "When life brings you a challenging situation, if you can't get out of it, get into it." What if Instead of trying to avoid my pain, what if I embraced it as a gift? Then maybe I could grow from it and thrive in the next chapter of my life. That thought led me to volunteer at an organization whose mission was to end hopelessness among teens. I showed up my first night, and there was an overwhelming sense of love and belonging in that room that I had never experienced before. The kids were laughing and hugging and playing games and teasing each other, and my first thought was, I must be in the wrong place because these kids do not look hopeless. I sat in support group that night and listened as teens shared their most vulnerable, painful experiences. And I realized these kids are exposing their souls. And in doing so, there was a sense of intimacy and connection that was being created. They compassionately supported one another, which was completely countercultural to what our society teaches us about avoiding emotional pain, and even more so about expressing it openly. Yet repeated studies show that when we share our suffering in the safe presence of others, it meets our deep need to be fully seen and fully known. Furthermore, the weight of the pain is alleviated as others come along and help us to carry it. Psychiatrist Kirk Thompson says the degree to which our pain persists is directly correlated to the degree that we remain alone in our pain. He says the brain can do a great deal of work for a long time, as long as it doesn't have to do it by itself. I remember thinking that night, man, if these kids who have dealt with more pain and heartbreak in their short lives than I've ever experienced can open up and be real about what they're going through, maybe I can do it too. During my volunteer time, I witnessed how this reality was unwrapping itself in my life as well as the teens. By naming and feeling our pain, we were allowing ourselves to receive it, to be honest with it, to connect with it, and to find ways to coexist with it. Instead of trying to avoid it, together we were finding ways through it. And in doing so, we are developing healthy coping skills and forming deep relationships. And the best part of all, we were finding joy in the middle of our pain. What a gift. Equally important is how we perceive life's challenges. In the article, The Principle of Receiving, it states that people have a choice to receive or resist what life brings them. When we welcome the pain brought on by hurtful circumstances, we open ourselves up to experience its potential positive impact on our lives. It can become a gift. Over the next decade, as I mentored and counseled people through their pain and trauma, I noticed that my own perspective on pain was starting to shift. I noticed that emotional pain was yielding yet another gift, the gift of resilience. Despite facing incredibly tough circumstances, my clients and these teens continued to show up ready to fight another day. It was like their struggles were transforming them into incredibly resilient individuals. As I observed this pattern, I realized that leaning into our pain can actually work in our favor. And not only is this true of human nature, but nature itself operates by this very same principle. Grapes, for instance, must go through a difficult season to become a vintage wine. To do this, farmers will intentionally stress the vines by withholding irrigation. This forces the roots to dive deeper into the soil to find moisture. In doing so, they uncover rich nutrients and minerals that they never would have discovered otherwise. This process yields an exquisite flavor of wine. Similarly, during the difficult season of my divorce, leaning into my pain yielded an unexpected growth within me. I was becoming a better version of myself, more aware, and more self-resilient. Looking back, I hardly even recognize the person I used to be. I used to be so full of fear and insecure and constantly seeking other people's approval. But now, I have a newfound confidence in myself and no longer seek external validation to feel okay. I finally understood the wise woman's metaphor. When we embrace emotional pain as a gift, we can transform past the pain, grow from it, and thrive in the next chapter of our life. Instead of pain being the enemy, it can become a powerful motivator to find healthy ways to navigate hardships. It can lead us to find community, for others to come alongside us and help carry that pain and help us to find joy in the process. And it fosters resilience. Just like lifting weights strengthens our muscles, processing through difficult emotions strengthens our emotional resilience and ability to persevere. Now, if teenagers, whose brains are not yet formed for critical thinking, can address and confront their painful experiences, we can do it too. And now, I'd like to invite you to take action in your own life, to prepare you for when the gift of emotional pain arrives at your doorstep. After you leave here today, I want you to actively seek opportunities to find community or deepen your current relationships. Go through your phone contacts and pick one or two people that you trust and ask them if they'd be willing to be your accountability partner. Commit to doing regular heart checks together by naming 2 to 3 emotions that you've experienced recently and the reasons behind them. If you don't have anyone like that in your life right now, find a counselor or a support group to join. When emotional pain arrives at your doorstep, don't try to walk around it. Don't close your eyes and hope it goes away. Instead, try opening it up and see what it has to offer you. You may just find a vintage wine. You may just find yourself. You may just find a gift.